This book is called The Gulag Archipelago, 1918 to 1956, by Alexander Solzhenitsyn. And he survived the Gulag, and he lived to write about it and get the word out. And he risked his life, I don't know how many times, trying to get the word out about what was really going on in the Soviet Union. And sadly, he was duped into turning to Christianity. Like so many people, the Jew plays both sides. They pretend enemies, both opposing sides, and it claimed to be enemies of each other, and it's actually the Jews controlling the same program. And I don't know how many times Christianity is always whining about how communism is of the devil, and all, meaning Satan, when they say it, and all this garbage. And they say, oh, well, they're not allowed to worship, and that's a lie. That's not true. Their churches are still open over there. But there's been priests that are arrested and stuff, but they make a big deal out of it. Like the average Gentile person doesn't even matter what happens to them. Or if it's a Jew that's arrested, and yeah, there were. Oh, wow, it's like you never hear the end of it. But they're playing both sides and towards the same thing. And he turned towards Christianity in the end, which is really sad, because it's like they're fighting they go from one to the other, and it's like you're disarmed, because it's like they're both Jewish programs, and unless you get them together and destroy them together is what Satan wants. That's why he wants me to do this sermon here and educate our people. Unless you destroy Christianity and communism, the Jewish Bolshevism together, it's like you're going to keep fighting this. It's never going to stop until it kills you. It says here in his book, arrest. Need it be said that is the breaking point in your life? A bolt of lightning which has scored a direct hit on you? That is an unassimilable spiritual earthquake not every person can cope with, as a result of which people often slip into insanity. The universe has many different centers, as there are living beings in it. Each of us is a center of the universe, and that universe is shattered when they hiss at you. You are under arrest. If you are arrested, can anything else remain unshattered by this cataclysm? But the darkened mind is incapable of embracing these displacements in our universe, and both the most sophisticated and veriest simpleton among us, drawing on all life's experiences, can only gasp out, "Me? What for?" And this is a question which, through repeated millions and millions of times before, has yet to receive an answer. Arrest is an instantaneous shattering thrust, expulsion, somersault from one state into another. And everything that is now compromised by the traditional, even literary, image of an arrest will pile up and take shape, not in your own disordered memory, but in what your family and your neighbors in your apartment remember. The sharp nighttime ring or rude knock at the door, the insolent entrance of the unwiped jackboots of the unsleeping state security operatives, the NKVD. Okay, that was the predecessor of the Jewish KGB. And they used these same tactics in the Christian Inquisition. You were guilty no matter what, and they even prosecuted your descendants. It's like you had no rights whatsoever. The frightened and cowed civilian witness at their backs. And what function does this civilian witness serve? The victim doesn't even dare think about it, and the operatives don't remember, but that's what the regulations call for, and so he has to sit there all night long and sign in the morning. For the witness, jerked from his bed, it is torture too, to go out night after night to help arrest his own neighbors and acquaintances. This traditional image of arrest is also trembling hands packing for the victim. A change of underwear, a piece of soap, something to eat, and no one knows what is needed, what is permitted, what clothes are best to wear, and the security agents keep interrupting and hurrying you. You don't need anything. They'll feed you there. It's warm there. It's all lies. They keep hurrying you to frighten you. The traditional image of arrest is also what happens afterward when the poor victim has been taken away. It is an alien, brutal, and crushing force totally dominating the apartment for hours on end. A breaking, ripping open, pulling from the walls, emptying things out from wardrobes and desks onto the floor, shaking, dumping out, and ripping apart, piling up mountains of litter on the floor, and the crunch of things being trampled beneath jackboots. And nothing is sacred in a search. During the arrest of the locomotive engineer Inoshin, A tiny coffin stood in his room containing the body of his newly dead child. The jurists, in quotation marks, unquote, dumped the child's body out of the coffin and searched it. They shake sick people out of their sick beds and they unwind bandages to search beneath them. For those left behind after the arrest, there is a long tail end of a wrecked and devastated life, and the attempts to go and deliver food parcels. But from all the windows the answer comes in barking voices. Nobody here by that name. Never heard of him. Yes, and in the worst days in Leningrad it took 5 days of standing in crowded lines just to get to that window. And it may be only after half a year or year that the arrested person responds at all. Or else the answer is tossed out, deprived of the right to correspond. And that means once and for all, no right to correspondence. And that almost for certain means has been shot. Now, getting back, I'm interrupting here from the book. I'm reading excerpts. These people were taken to the main Soviet prison in Moscow. Most of them, that were Muscovites. To the Lubyanka. That was where they were held. And there was no heat in any of the cells. And we're talking Russian winters here. We're not talking like, Midwestern United States or moderate climate of Europe. I'm talking the most brutal cold you can imagine. I know because I'm from the northern United States, and I know how cold it can get. And these people weren't even given any heat in their cells, and they were just like with the Inquisition. And the Pravda newspaper, which is the main communist newspaper, it's very common in the Soviet Union, stated, I have a quote, and if you look up therealholocaust.com, and it's also on Exposing Christianity, I put on several articles there, that Christianity is the mother of Bolshevism. And the same exact torture tactics, only a little bit more variation here, same procedure, happened in the Christian Inquisition. Now, getting back to reading this, what they did when they took the prisoner there is they forced them into a confession of something. Just ludicrous crap that they just an innocent person that they picked up, busted down the door of their home, whatever, made them sign a confession, beat them and tortured them, starved them, froze them. Put them in the most bug-infested boxes. Just extreme torture until the person broke down and confessed or died. A lot of them died. It says, let us try to list some of the simplest methods which break the will and the character of the prisoner without leaving marks on his body. Let us begin with the psychological methods. These methods have been enormous and even annihilating impact on rabbits. I know he's being slang, but meaning innocents, who have never been prepared for prison suffering. And it isn't even easy for a person who holds the strongest convictions. 1. First of all, night. Why is it all the main work of breaking down human souls went on at night? Why from the very earliest years did the organs select the night? The organs he's using another word here, it means the system, the Soviet system, the organs. Because at night the prisoner is torn from sleep, and even though he has not yet been tortured by sleeplessness, lacks his normal daytime equanimity and common sense. He is most vulnerable. 2. Persuasion. In a sincere tone and the very simplest method, why play at cat and mouse, so to speak? After all, having spent some time among others undergoing interrogation, the prisoner has come to see what the situation is. And so the interrogator says to him in a lazily friendly way, "Look, you're going to get a prison term, whatever happens. But if you resist, you'll croak," meaning die, "right here in prison, and you'll lose your health. But if you go on to camp, you'll have fresh air and sunlight. So why not sign now?" Very logical. And for those who agree and sign and are smart, if the matter concerns only themselves. But that's rarely so. A struggle is inevitable. And I also want to interject something here. Else, most of these interrogators, and it's the same with the Inquisition, are Jewish. Another variant of persuasion is particularly appropriate to the party member. If there are shortages and even famine in the country, then you as a Bolshevik have to make up your mind. Can you admit that the whole party is to blame? Or the whole Soviet government? No, of course not. The director of the flax depot hastened to reply, "Then be brave and shoulder the blame yourself," and he did. And another thing I want to interject is this communist Jewish psychology where they blame the victim for everything. It's like you're having problems that you never even had anything to do with, like surviving, and the Jew makes it impossible to survive. It's like the more control they have, you're going to be dead. They get you so indebted, and you can't pay. The jobs are low pay, the whole 5 yards. And no matter what you owe, these are choices you make. I don't know how many times I've heard this garbage before, and it's designed to instill depression and suicide in the victim. Oh well, you're responsible for that. Well, maybe there's a limited number of choices the average person is able to make, a limited number, but you cannot control the results. But the Jew tries to tell you that you can, and this is very, very common in Jewish psychiatry. And these stupid idiots that blame the victim for the problems that the victim has. In other words, the victim's to blame, the Jew is not, the system isn't to blame, what you've been subjected to in life isn't to blame, life certainly isn't to blame, the whole blame is on you. And that's what they do, and they break people down that way, and they also, it also causes self-hatred, self-blame, self-loathing, low self-esteem. It's no different from the Christian concept that you're born in original sin, so you're damned, and the only way out is through being saved, and that's a joke. That's a total lie, and I've gone into a lot of detail of that. I'm not going to spend this audio sermon on that. You can just check exposingchristianity.com for that one. But here's another one. 4. Psychological contrast was sometimes effective. Sudden reversals of tone, for example, are full. Okay, it goes on and it says, "Fool you, rat! I'll put 9 grains of lead in your skull." And he would advance on the accused, clutching his hands outstretched as if to grab by the hair, fingernails like needles. This worked very, very well with women prisoners. And they would get family members to sign confessions against, like, their brother, their sister, their mother, their father, other relatives. And this is no different from the Judeo-Christian Bible, when that Nazarene, which is a fictitious entity, that Jesus the Christ, for those of you, I call it the Nazarene because you spit on the damn thing, says, "I will turn family members against family members, brother against brother, sister against sister, father against son, daughter against mother, etc. Members of his own household will be enemies against him." And it's in the New Testament. And this is no different what they do in the communism. I'm going to be wrapping this up here, and I'm going to start on another sermon here because this is getting to be too long. It's already 25 minutes. I'm ending this right now because it's 25 minutes long. You can go to sermon 2, and I'll take up from there. I don't want to have these sermons too long. Hail Satan.